Everything was gone. 20 years of my life turned to ash in one night. I was standing barefoot in my pajamas at 3 in the morning watching my house burn while my HOA president, my neighbor Chloe Green, stood across the street filming it like she'd just won an award. She wasn't calling 911. She was documenting my destruction. And the worst part, I knew she'd finally done it. She'd crossed a line you don't come back from. I used to think HOA horror stories were exaggerations. You know, the kind people share on Reddit for laughs, some power-hungry neighbor losing her mind over mailbox paint or grass height. That was before I met Chloe Green, 5'4" of pure suburban tyranny, wrapped in a designer tracksuit armed with a clipboard and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. At first it was almost funny. She'd crouch next to my mailbox measuring my grass with a digital caliper like she was surveying for NASA. 2.8 inches, Mr. King, she'd announce, brushing off her knees dramatically. Regulation allows 2.5. I thought she was joking. 0.3 of an inch of grass. Come on. But then came the certified letter official, HOA letterhead, Chloe's signature, and a fine for $500 plus $100 a day until I complied. For grass. When I marched into the HOA meeting, the room smelled like beige paint and stale donuts. Chloe was up front running the show like she was chairing a Senate hearing, charts, pie graphs, the works. When I objected, she pulled out a thick folder labeled with my address. Photos of my trash cans, fence height, mailbox scuffs, months of surveillance. Majority rules, Mr. King, she said with a smile so cold it could have frozen hell. That's when I noticed the man in the suit whispering to her, Michael Ross, a developer who'd been buying up houses in the neighborhood. Turns out, everyone but me had already sold. I was the last holdout. The grass, the fines, the harassment, it was all pressure. And then one morning, I got a plain envelope on my doorstep, no return address. Inside, a photo of my house with a big red X across the siding. 2 words underneath, pay up. 2 days later, things got uglier. Someone created an anonymous account in the neighborhood group chat spreading rumors that I was bankrupt, behind on taxes, facing foreclosure. Total lies, but you know how gossip works. Throw enough mud, some sticks. People started avoiding me. Then one morning, as I backed out of my driveway there, she was Chloe standing right behind my car, blocking me from leaving. "You're not going anywhere until we settle this," she shouted loud enough for half the block to hear. Neighbors started filming, dogs barked, and Chloe turned the whole thing into a performance about protecting property values. Then she called the police on me, told them I was unstable. By the time they arrived, she was playing the concerned citizen routine while I sat in my car looking like the crazy one. That single phone call cost me my job. My boss didn't want legal drama at the firm. I should have known that was only the beginning. The morning after that spectacle, I got in my car, pressed the brakes at the stop sign, and nothing happened. The pedal went straight to the floor. I was rolling downhill toward an intersection, traffic everywhere, a school bus full of kids crossing. My brain froze. Everything slowed down until a pickup truck came barreling up beside me, horn blaring. It was Pete Parker, my neighbor from 2 streets over. He pulled in front of me, letting me crash into his tailgate to stop. When the smoke cleared, he looked under my car, pale as a ghost. "Someone cut your brake lines, Dan," he said quietly. That was the first time I realized Chloe wasn't just a bully. She was dangerous. 3 weeks later, I found out how dangerous. It was late July, storm rolling in, thunder shaking the windows. Around midnight, I smelled something strange, burning plastic. I got up, checked the hall, and saw a flicker of orange under the bedroom door. Fire. Within minutes, the whole house was an inferno. Linda and I barely made it out. Standing in the street, soaked in rain and smoke, I watched 20 years of our life collapse. And there she was again. Chloe arriving like a disaster coordinator, clipboard in one hand, radio earpiece in the other. Whispering to neighbors what to say, what time they noticed the smoke. Perfectly dressed, perfectly calm. Like she'd rehearsed it. At sunrise, the fire investigator showed me a bag of evidence accelerant residue in the basement, a container with my fingerprints on it. I'd never seen it before, but within an hour I was in handcuffs. "Daniel King, you're under arrest for arson and insurance fraud." Watching my wife cry on the sidewalk while they read me my rights, I can't even describe that feeling. We ended up in a dingy roadside motel called the Sunrise Inn, a place where hope goes to die. Linda was sick from stress. our accounts frozen, our car impounded. I wore an ankle monitor. The only person who still visited was Pete. He brought groceries, helped with paperwork, even drove Linda to appointments. He became the one good thing left in my life. Until the day I saw his phone light up with a text. "How's our boy holding up, still broken?" From someone labeled C. I asked who it was. He froze. Then he broke down completely. "She has Emma," he whispered. "My daughter. She's been blackmailing me. I cut your brakes. I planted the accelerant. I did everything she told me to because if I didn't, she'd make sure I lost custody forever." My stomach turned. The man who'd saved my life had been part of the plan to destroy it. He confessed that Chloe had orchestrated everything. The brake sabotage was staged so he could rescue me and gain my trust. Every time he came over to help, he was planting evidence. That was the moment I broke. I wasn't angry. I was hollow. I remember staring at the motel's flickering neon sign thinking maybe Chloe had won. Maybe some people really were untouchable. I almost believed it. Until Pete handed me his phone. He said I recorded everything, every message, every instruction. I can fix this. And just like that, the tide turned. When the police got the recordings, the dominoes fell fast. Chloe and her developer buddy, Michael Ross, were arrested on conspiracy, fraud, arson, you name it. A month later, I found myself sitting in the back of my own courtroom, not as the judge, but as the victim. Chloe walked in wearing a designer suit, smirking like she still owned the place. That smirk disappeared when Judge Hayes read the record. The victim in this case is Judge Daniel King. I watched her face go from confusion to horror. She finally realized who I was. The quiet neighbor she'd been tormenting was a sitting judge. The prosecution laid it all out like a crime thriller, videos of her near my house the night of the fire, text messages calling the blaze. Final obstacle removal bank transfers from the developer to her company. Pete's full confession. Her lawyer tried to spin it as passionate neighborhood advocacy gone too far. The judge didn't even blink. When the gavel came down, it was over. 10 years in state prison, no parole for 7, nearly $500,000 in restitution. Permanent ban from any HOA board. As the deputies led her away, she looked up at the empty front row where the HOA board used to sit. Nobody was there to defend her. The woman who once controlled every inch of our neighborhood now couldn't even control her own freedom. I stood in that courtroom, the same room where I'd passed judgment on hundreds of people, and finally understood what justice really felt like. Not revenge, just quiet, undeniable balance. Chloe Green burned my house to the ground, but in the end, she only set fire to herself. What lesson? Some people think power protects them, but when justice finally arrives, it doesn't knock, it kicks the damn door down.